right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us here today on this presentation of Marathon Essentials hosted by the San Jose District of the California Physical Therapy Association and the Big Sur International Marathon Foundation. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items. Please keep your microphone muted throughout the presentation. And as you have questions, please enter them in the chat and we'll get to as many as we can at the conclusion of the talks. My name is John Russell. It's nice to meet you all. I'm a former board member of the Big Sur International Marathon, and for the past 8 years, I have served as the director of the start line. So that means on April 24th, as you step off the bus, my face will be likely one of the first you see. So sorry, I'm not better looking. But if there's any consolation, I will be one of the few people that got up earlier than you that morning. So on behalf of the Big Sur staff, the board of directors, the 70 area captains, and the 2,500 volunteers that make this race go, we are beyond excited to welcome you back to our first race in almost 3 years. Apparently, we're not the only ones that are excited. Every single race, marathon weekend, is 100% sold out and has been so for quite some time. So again, we are beyond excited for April. I understand that some of you all are first-time marathoners, so congratulations and thank you for choosing Big Sur. You won't be disappointed in the course. The views are absolutely breathtaking, and I can almost guarantee that none of you will take any wrong turns. If you don't get it, it's a bad joke. There are no turns in our course. It's a straight point to point. We do have a few hills though. It's a really hilly course. We also have a grand piano, some taiko drummers, and a couple tons of strawberries around the 20-mile mark. So I really hope that you all have a great time. Before I turn it over to our expert panel, I did want to pass along my thank you and the thanks of the board. The Big Sur Marathon is a foundation. Most of the proceeds of the race are donated back to the community, to 70 community organizations. You're helping to support Boy Scout troops and Girl Scout troops, local high school sports teams, health centers, and veteran support groups. So again, on behalf of everyone at the marathon, thank you very much. So now, without any further ado, I'm going to hand the microphone off to Krista Ozio of the California Physical Therapy Association to introduce our panel. So Krista, please take it away.
Okay, thank you, John. I'm Krista Ozio. I'm the Public Relations Chair of the San Jose District California Physical Therapy Association, who's hosting today's event. I'm also a physical therapist at Community Hospital of the Monterey Peninsula here. So I will be introducing our two speakers shortly. We have Blake Russell, who's going to be giving you some really great information about training day, race day tips. And then after her will be Andrew Mason, who's going to be speaking about some injury prevention, cross training. But first, I would like to share that the San Jose District CPTA is doing an ongoing project of these PT expert panels, which this presentation is part of, that's going to showcase various injuries, impairments, medical diagnoses that are appropriately addressed by physical therapy. And each presentation is going to have speakers with expert knowledge in the area being discussed. So if you like this presentation today, please keep an eye on our social media pages because we will be advertising those for our future. Let's see. If you look in the chat, we're going to put some of the links to our social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and again, we're going to be having some ongoing expert panels with various topics. We can also put in the resources for our Move California campaign, which has some really great information regarding physical therapy. So I'm going to introduce your first speaker, Blake Russell. She's a 5-time USA champion in cross country and the USA Road Circuit, as well as a 2008 Marathon Olympian. She is the owner of On Track Physical Therapy and Performance in Pacific Grove, California. Blake graduated from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in 1997 as a track All-American and two-time ACC champion. She continued running professionally while attending physical therapy school at Elon University and had a long and successful post-collegiate career as one of the United States' top cross-country and track runners. Blake's impressive running career holds many achievements, including being the only American to finish the marathon in the 2008 Beijing Olympics and a marathon personal best of 2 hours, 29 minutes, and 10 seconds. Blake now lives with her husband and 2 children. She is retired from racing, but enjoys running almost every day. So with that, I can hand the page over to Blake. And
Great. Thank you. I am so thrilled to be here. And I know that being a physical therapist just helped me pursue all my running goals and to stay very healthy. So I feel like it's a win-win. All right, so let me, shoot. Here's my screen. Okay. So welcome to Marathon Essentials. I'm always excited to talk about running and especially for new runners. So I feel like it can be a little bit daunting at first. So we already talked about that. So today we're going to talk about like how to plan your marathon build up. Let me preface this by saying there's lots of different ways to get to the end of the marathon. So this is just my way, and I've used different methods throughout my career, but we're just going to touch on a couple sample ideas. So then there's different types of training that you can do, and I'm not sure where we're all coming from. So we're going to kind of start from the beginning and kind of breeze through a few things. It's really important to learn how to calculate your training paces, because if you're training too hard, you're going to be miserable and you're not going to reach your goals, and you're probably going to be hurt before the actual race happens. We're going to talk about setting up your week. And I'm going to get to some specifics for training for the actual Big Sur Marathon. And I do have a sample training plan that we will be able to send out to whoever would like it. Okay, so this slide might be a little daunting. Don't freak out. Let's see, you can see what I want. The big takeaway from this one is to kind of look at, we have 3 different phases. So we kind of have the build-up phase, and the building the strength in the middle phase, and then the final phase. So I'm assuming that everyone has like a general running base. Normally when I would start marathon training, I don't just start from scratch, like no running at all. So even if you're just running, a couple of miles every day, that's a really good place to start. And then you sort of can see from the chart that it kind of is a little bit of a bell curve. Just think about it going up and down, and we're doing like a lot more work in the middle. But if you look, when we get a little bit closer, you'll see that we're kind of going up and down in mileage, because it's really important to factor in recovery time. So the weeks are in general 1 to 3 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, and then we have the race day here at the end. But we're going to just follow like gradual mileage all the way up. And when I did the weeks, I put in the long runs for when the heavier weights, you're going to get a higher mileage in, obviously, when you're doing some long runs. So I found it's really important, even for if you're a new marathoner, you got to get in the long runs, because that is going to be what's going to help you for the actual race day and just building your aerobic capacity. So I'm recommending at least 2 long runs. We'll talk about long runs a little bit more detail in a minute. And also, if you are brand new and you're just running and wanting to do some long runs, you're probably going to be fine if you're going to make it to the end of the marathon. Personally, I would recommend doing a few more faster things. So we're going to talk about some intervals and tempos, and some marathon pace runs. Definitely make time for some mobility work. We're not going to touch on that here because we just don't have time, but certainly very, very important. And then Andrew's also going to talk about, the next speaker, a little bit of cross training, which is important. So other than that, you kind of think of training, if you're doing it properly, like a little bit of a part-time job. So you want to make sure you're eating and sleeping properly. And then at the very end, we're having about a 2-week taper. So it's just a chance to let your body catch up and like really benefit from all the hard work you were doing. knowing that all this work you did and the build up and the strength training phase is just going to help you on race day. So to get a little bit more into our types of training, we have the long run. I generally never did them really hard, so I would just do them more about a 60% percentage effort. And some coaches like to have people do like intervals in their long runs and other things. But for me, like I didn't set my week up like that. So I just did a regular long run as like a comfortable pace. And it gets harder as you're getting into those longer long runs. So it can be, I always average like 14 miles, 18 miles. And then my long runs would be more like 22 miles. If you're really new, like just know that when you're getting up to the higher mileage, it's when you risk injury. So I'd say like err on the side of caution with all of those. Easy runs, definitely important. Like, and just think of them as like as easy as you need to go. 50, 60% effort. Even a day off, I mean, we're going to consider that easy run because your body might need it. It just really depends on like where you're starting. Marathon pace runs, definitely like a staple when I was training for an actual marathon, because I knew what pace I had to run, and I would just start building up slowly from like 4 miles at marathon pace all the way up to 12 miles at marathon pace, just to learn what that pace felt like, and how to adjust on the terrain if I was really trying to get a certain time goal. Threshold and tempo runs, I didn't throw into our training plan that I'm going to give you, but they are definitely a staple of a lot of my training. So they are usually a little bit faster than marathon pace running, and they would be 15 seconds faster. So a little bit shorter, but faster. Interval training, I love hill workouts, and I feel like they, even if they're mentally easy. So I would kind of like always start with those if I wasn't in great shape, and just kind of work myself into shape with those. But it could be hills, it could be track workouts, it could be road workouts. It can be a lot of different things when you say like interval workouts. But basically the key concept is they are faster than the marathon and the threshold and long runs. Okay, so really important.
So I'm just gonna.
Really important is to find your training pace. I have lots of different charts, but I think this, for everyone to have access to it, this is really the best option. So Jack Daniels is a pretty famous coach, exercise physiologist. He's got some great books out. He's got some more intricate charts in his books, but you can access his training charts on his website for free. So I just put in, I didn't move this, put in the 4 hour hour marks, and then it shows me the pace, and then it shows you the easy runs down here, and then the marathon pace, the threshold pace, interval pace, the repetitions. And that's really important, because if you're just training at the wrong paces, you're just going to kind of feel like you're beating your head against a wall, and then you're going to be overtraining, and you're not going to be recovering in between races, or in between workouts. So planning your week. So we are going to follow, it's really important to follow a hard quality day with an easy recovery day. So I generally plan my week, especially if you're working, doing a little bit more on the weekends, because that's when you're going to have more time. If you do lift home weights, it's important to not do it the day before, because you're just going to put yourself in a little bit of a hole before a workout. So it would make it a better quality workout to do it either the day of or the day after. And for me, I would do usually a hard Saturday workout, you can see down here, and then I would follow up with a long run. Generally, I would put interval days, if you're going to choose to do interval days, on, a Wednesday or Tuesday. And that, if life gets busy, you can move those around a little bit. But I would try and kind of plan ahead and see what works best for you. If you have a busy work day, just adjust your schedule, but you really do like the bulk of your stuff on Saturday and Sunday for your own sanity, probably. So hydrating and nutrition is important. So when I ran in the Beijing Marathon, it was very, very hot. And so the US Olympic Committee had done a whole lot of research about how to stay hydrated and found that like drinking a lot of water all at once, about 3 hours before competition was a good idea. And then following up with like sipping on a Gatorade or electrolyte drink, something that you're used to prior to the race. So I found this really helpful, something that I would practice. And I feel like, the 12 to 16, it really is going to vary on like body type, because I'm a little bit of a smaller runner. If you're like a big, 6 foot guy and you're like going to be sweating a little bit more, then you need to adjust. But I would generally practice this for your long runs. So think of your long runs as kind of your pre-race effort and kind of your mental effort. And get up the first couple of times you do like drink all this water all at once, it's just going to go right through you. And then after a while, your body gets used to it. So even now, I still get up in the mornings and I brush my teeth and I just drink a bunch of water because I know that I'll start my day really hydrated. But you don't want to ignore the electrolytes. That's like the salts and the sugars that you're going to need for actual like race day. And again, like drinking during race day is really important because hydrated you is going to always feel better than getting dehydrated and risking like muscle cramps. So this is just for kind of a minimum, try and get something down. I was pretty bad at drinking water during races. But if you have to stop and walk, like stop and walk and drink something and then like kind of pick up your pace again. It's more important to like stay hydrated. And it might be chilly out there on the race course. So the hydration might sneak up on you a little bit. So it's also important to plan on like fuel replenishing. I mean, I know there are lots of strawberries out there, but maybe have something with you in case you don't want to feel lightheaded. And the last thing you want to do is just be running out of fuel at the end. So knowing that your body's going to start running out of fuel about 90 minutes, I would usually start taking a gel about 80 minutes out. And those usually need to be taken with water to be effective. So, and then take it every like 5K or so afterwards. But again, like this is not something you want to do race day. You want to make sure you really practice before, because I don't want anybody feeling sick out there. So Big Sur is pretty, I went back, shoot. Oh, I can't get back. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, hang on. John, how do I get back?
Back arrow. Left
Oh,
arrow.
All right, sorry, I hit something. So it's a pretty hilly course. You can see from the elevation map that it starts out a lot of downhill, like all the way through like, mile like 6 or something. So it's something everyone always goes out a little bit hard, and you definitely don't want to go out too hard on this course. You want to like think of the first like 6 miles as kind of a warm up, just feeling really relaxed and fresh, because obviously it's going to get a little bit harder. But knowing that it is a lot of downhill, you want to like definitely train on the downhill because it's going to beat your quads up a lot. So I would find, it's not, if you live around here, it's not too hard to find any hills, but like some long, like 2-mile downhills, and just really practice like running fast down them or incorporate them into your marathon training course or, your workouts during that week, just to help get over that initial soreness. And then your body's going to feel better. Again, with the course, the road does have this like camber on it. And I know that a lot of people have struggled with some calf issues. So you want to make sure that you kind of seek out, there are a few flat spots. I mean, occasionally you can kind of run on the side of the road, but just be aware that even like just adjusting like where you run on the road might give your calves a little bit of a break. Also, you will be up early, very early, at 3 a.m. to catch the bus. Like my husband said, like there people will be out there setting up about midnight. So at least you're not that boat. But you will be outside, and it's probably going to be pretty chilly. So you want to make sure that you bring lots of warm clothes, and they don't know if they're letting you have bags or not to keep those. So kind of factor that in, because you don't want to be sitting there shivering before race day. Not a whole lot of places to get out of the weather if it is incremental weather and if it's raining. So plan on possibly rain. I think you'll know when it's closer to get there. Plan to bring food and snacks, and there will be some coffee and some waters at the start. That, men especially, like, that you're going to be happy if you've packed a little bit of Vaseline or Body Glide at the beginning. We talked about the gels, but they are out there too, in case you don't have any. I usually was good at stuffing a bunch in my shorts or something, but there will be some gels at like mile 12 and 0.2 and 18.9 miles. But I'd still bring some with you, just in case you kind of are just too busy paying attention to the view and you forget to grab some fruits out there. And I think there'll be a bunch of signs, and there's probably going to be like somebody running around in a big strawberry outfit. And then just make sure you're really looking at the views and like taking it all in, because just to be out there and to know that you trained for this race and to enjoy it is quite a feat, and you should be proud of yourself. So here's my sample. I feel like I'm trying to get over. I did this again. Sample training plan. So we've kind of already missed week 1. Normally I would do like a 12-week training plan. Sometimes people do a little bit longer. I kind of feel like sometimes doing longer means that you are risking like just getting like really burnt out by the time the race gets there. So I would opt for a little bit of a shorter overall training plan. But like I said, this is assuming that you are starting in pretty decent shape. And then this is just more like honing your actual specific marathon efforts. So just samples, as I talked about, like I was, and you can see here, like a little bit easier how the mileage should kind of go up and down. I picked, just when I was writing this one out, just like a 1 week up, 1 week down, and then just put in like maybe 2 bigger weeks, because the goal is just the principles of training called stress and adaptation, where we have to like stress our body systems, and then they're like, oh no, we need to build more muscle, we've got to get, and then you let it recover, and then you should be able to elevate to the next level. So these are like our little micro segments that we're working on. And then as far as like the whole training goes, you should have a lot of recovery built in. But we're definitely focusing on those 2 long runs, and then just getting the marathon pace runs in. So when I did my first marathon, I every week just went up and started at like 4 miles. You can see here, like 5 miles, 6 miles, 7 miles, all at marathon pace. And it's hard if you're really trying to aim for a goal. But it's good mental training. So I think that for me, like, it really was helpful, because the marathon's it's hard. I mean, I won't lie to you, like it's challenging, especially when you're getting to the end. No matter if you went out easy or hard, or like you've done 1 or 2, like you never quite know how they're going to go. But for me, knowing that I put in like some really good work was what gave me the confidence to have a good race. And it was just all these marathon pace training runs were really good for your mental preparation. So lots of workouts here and some ideas. But again, most of like my midweek ones were faster long runs, or excuse me, faster interval paces. So it could either be short intervals or long intervals, but something a little bit faster than marathon pace. So main takeaways is just to make sure that you are training at your pace. I know it's easy to get sucked up into training with a partner that may be just like a little bit fitter than you. I know I coach a gentleman that likes to accompany on his long runs, but like the other runner that he's running with is always running a little bit faster. And I finally like yelled at him, like, you got to slow down. Like, you're doing yourself a detriment by trying to run too fast. So And then make sure that you are listening to your body, because if you're getting injured, it's just not fun and you're not going to make it to the finish line, or even like the starting line. So think of it consistency. If you have to take some days off, it's no big deal. Just know that, try and pick up as best you can and then ease back into it if you do have any sort of training breaks. But mainly just enjoy the process and do the best you can to set yourself up for success. So I think we're gonna save questions, but I will let Krista answer that.
Okay. Great, thank you so much, Blake. That was amazing. Really helpful information. And I'm not even the one training for the marathon. So we had a couple pretty quick questions, I think, come in, and we've got a minute. So I think you answered one of them. There was a question about training for hills specifically, but I think that was before you got to your point about including the hills and really kind of charging downhill, especially because of this specific race. Was there anything else? The specific question was specific training for the hills in this race. Do you have anything else to add to that?
Do it maybe if you plan on running in different shoes race day. I know everyone's really into the Vaporflies, and you can't be a marathoner or not have heard of the Vaporfly shoes, but I would do practice with those shoes, and then I would also do some workouts in those shoes. So, but as far as I think it's just some practice and getting used to it. And I think Andrew is probably going to touch on this. I think the weight training is really important for building up your quads, with some squats and lunges and things like that are really going to make you a strong runner. And other than the hills, technique is really important. So you really want to, I'm a big proponent of focusing on your form and your breathing, and we don't have a lot of time to get to that here. Oh, there's my timer. But focus on when you're leaning forward, when you're running up the hill and when you're running downhill. So you're going to get the right angle against the road.
Okay, great. Thank you. I do see more questions coming in, but we're going to hold those until the end. So thank you for addressing that one. Sure. And just a reminder to everybody, since I know we've had a lot of people enter the presentation midway. So this is Marathon Essentials. That was Blake Russell speaking. And we now have Andrew Mason, who's going to be speaking about cross-training and injury prevention. So Andrew, oh, and also, sorry, reminder that if you have questions, do put them in the chat. Keep your mics muted, please. So we've got Andrew Mason. He is a former professional Olympic distance triathlete and road cyclist. He is a doctor of physical therapy who specializes in return to sport and orthopedic rehabilitation at Community Hospital of the Monterey Peninsula. Prior to earning his DPT at Samuel Merritt University in 2016, Andrew attended UC Santa Barbara, where he was on the rowing team, placing on the podium in state and national regattas in varsity lightweight 4-man and 8-man boats. After graduating, he raced sprint and Olympic distance triathlons, placing in the top 10 and winning his age group at numerous races across the Western US. From 2006 to 2013, he was a professional road cyclist, racing in the Tour of California in 2009 and 2010. He now lives a relatively quiet life in Santa Cruz, California with his wife and 3-year-old son, racing Olympic and half Ironman distance triathlons, as well as riding his bike every chance he gets. So I will now pass you over to Andrew.
Hey everybody, I'm Andrew. Let me get my screen going for you. All right. Here we go. Okay, so I am here to talk to you about cross-training and injury prevention for runners. Let me do one thing. Okay, there we go. So like Krista said, I'm a physical therapist. I'm a doctor of physical therapy at Community Hospital of Monterey Peninsula, and I specialize in orthopedic and sports rehab. Here, oh, where's it going? No. There we go. Okay. Had to find my button. So yeah, I'm an Olympic distance triathlete. That's what I did, after I graduated from college. I do half Ironman distance as well now. It hurts a lot more, but you guys are crazy because you're doing a whole marathon. I only have to do half. And then I was also a professional road cyclist, raced all over the country in Tour California. I did it from 2006 to 2013. So dive into cross training for runners. So what is cross training? It's an athletic training in activities or sports other than the athlete's usual sports. The goal is really to improve your overall performance. It takes advantage of the effectiveness of one training method to negate the shortcomings of another. Really what it does is it helps reduce the risk of running related injuries. It improves your cardiovascular and muscular endurance. It can strengthen your body, which can improve your endurance and running efficiency. Can provide a mental and physical break by switching up your training. I remember training for half marathons and yeah, I would get pretty bored. So being able to jump into other sports on occasion, you know, and I'll talk about those in a second here, was really nice break. And also it allows you to target specific deficiencies. A lot of times I think runners, we don't know what our deficiencies are until you try something else. And then it really kind of puts a light on that, which is pretty neat to be able to see where some of your maybe errors may lie, and then you can work on those things. And it's amazing how much it can positively impact running. So running is, it's anterior, posterior leg muscle dominant. Really think, you know, quads, glutes, hamstrings, calves. It's the muscles in the front and the back of your legs. It doesn't use the muscles on the inside and outside of your legs too much. So being able to attack that different ways is really good. It's also really dependent on your trunk and core stability with a little bit of rotation. If you've ever seen somebody run, your body rotates ever so slightly when you run, and your arms swing in the opposite direction to your legs. This is a counterbalance. Try running with your arms held straight down by your side. It looks really funny, and it's also incredibly inefficient. It's also an impact-based exercise. When you run, the earth doesn't cushion you. You know, it pushes back pretty hard, and that's an impact on your joints, mainly the low back, your hips, your knees, your ankles. And then so non-impact and low impact exercises are really what are best for runners for cross training. And so we're going to go into that. So we talk about cross training. They say not all cross training is created equal. You know, so specific cross training for runners really goes after things like cycling and swimming, which are considered non-impact exercises. You know, you're not pushing against the earth, although sometimes cycling, it feels like you are, depending on if you're going up hills. But it really does let you use your core quite a bit, as well as your leg muscles and that rotational aspect of things. Still, cycling and swimming don't really work the lateral aspect of your legs in terms of those muscles. And that's where things like the gym-based exercises get in. So weightlifting and training, you know, squats, lateral lifts, stuff like that is really actually really good. It's not all about lifting heavy weights though. We kind of train for endurance in the gym, which is more in terms of the lower sets, higher.
Sorry, Andrew, I just muted you.
All right. That's one of our background people trying to mess with me. Okay, so back to weightlifting. You know, being able to get in the gym. You don't even have to get into the gym. You know, weight training can be accomplished at home. You know, you can get resistance-based bands. They're pretty cheap online. Also, using things for your arms like you know, gallon of milk or soup cans actually can go a long way. A lot of times people talk about high intensity interval training or HIIT workouts. These actually have been found to be counterproductive for endurance based activities. So running is one of those, particularly marathon running, because it just drains the heck out of you. I've tried before I knew what I was doing to incorporate HIIT into my workouts, and it like totally beat me up for a whole week. But you can incorporate the principles of high intensity interval training into your running workout. These are things like Blake talked about, which are the interval trainings, hill repeats, fartleks. By the way, fartleks is Swedish for speed play, which is kind of cool. The idea is it's a continuous run with periods of faster and slower speed. So interval training, you go fast and you take a break. And you go fast and you take a break. Whereas a fartlek is you go fast and then you go medium or slow and then you go fast again and you do that. And so it's kind of, it's like a hill repeat workout without the hill, which is pretty cool. And you're going to be able to get a lot of that on the Big Sur Marathon course. So if I remember, no, here we go. So injury prevention is the other big part of our topic here. So the most common running related injuries are shin splints, plantar fasciitis, stress fractures, IT band syndrome, tendonitis primarily of the Achilles and the patella, which is your kneecap, and then runner's knee, which is patellofemoral pain syndrome. Patellofemoral pain syndrome. So that's when your kneecap kind of grinds inappropriately on the end of your femur. It comes from a lot of times tightness of a lot of muscles. So the big way to prevent these things are via a proper warm up with dynamic stretching, which we'll talk about, post-workout static stretching, soft tissue massage, nutrition, cadence, which is steps per minute, and the whole idea of don't try something new on race day. So stretching. During your warm-up, you want to use dynamic stretching. After, you want to use static stretching. But what's the difference? The difference is dynamic stretching is movement-based. There's no hold. It's best to exercise the muscles to warm them up before you actually use them for what your activity is, in this case, running. But if you're doing cross-training, also cycling, swimming, or weightlifting. A static stretch is a position that is held for 30 to 90 seconds, and it's actually best performed after exercise to decrease the tension on your heavily used muscles. Turns out research has found that static stretching before working out or before your exercise actually leads to higher rates of injury. It can also decrease your performance. So the idea of using a dynamic stretch or dynamic movement prior to the exercise or activity, that's the best way to go. And then static stretching is done afterwards. So a couple examples of dynamic stretching for your warm-up. Now, these are just a couple examples. They kind of encompass the whole body, but if there's something that you already do or you have a better idea, please, by all means, do it. You can also go online and just Google it. There's a lot of great YouTube videos on dynamic stretching warm-ups. Here's some arm circles, so getting your arms going. It also works on your trunk and your leg stability. Just, 10 to 20 of each. Leg pendulums, kind of, shifting your leg forward, backwards. If you can, you kind of move your trunk back and forth as well. What that does is it does warm up those muscles in the front of your core. And then trunk rotation. Also, just moving through the trunk, it opens up the knees and the hips. This gentleman has a stick. Don't have to use a stick. You can kind of put your arms out to the side or keep your hands on your hips. These are all great things to do right before the marathon event day as well. Again, don't carry a stick. That probably your neighbors wouldn't like you so much. But just getting the body moving before your activity. So static stretching. Now, these are just stretches that are more for runners specifically. I do this on a regular basis, pretty much every single day. A lot of people don't know that the calf muscle is actually two calf muscles. The first is the gastroc, and there's a lower that's called the soleus. I actually have a rolled up towel that I keep in front of my bathroom sink. So when I brush my teeth in the morning and the evening, I stretch. You'll notice the difference is this is the calf muscle. So the calf or gastroc stretch, the knee is kept straight. And then in the soleus stretch, the knee is bent ever so slightly so that you actually get a slightly lower stretch. And then holding again for 30 to 90 seconds twice a day is appropriate. Now, hip flexors and quadriceps, those big muscles in the front of your legs, they need stretching too. They get pretty tight. This is what's going to prevent that anterior knee pain and patellar or kneecap tendonitis. This is two versions of the same stretch. It's all about what you can tolerate. So if you can be in a lunge position like this lady here, with the knee on the ground, you can do this. It's all about bringing the hips straight forward. You'll feel a stretch coming right in the front of your thigh. Same thing, but also, you can lay on your back on your bed or your couch and put one knee up and then put your leg straight and drop it off the side and you get a stretch on the front of your thigh. Hamstring stretches. Now, hamstrings are the counter to the quadriceps, so the muscles on the back of your thigh. Here's one version sitting. You can sit with your back, with your knees straight, heel on the floor, and you lean forward and you should feel a good stretch right through the back of your thigh. Now, if you can't do that, if it bugs your back or something, or if you feel it lower down, that means your sciatic nerves being stretched. Please don't do that. They don't like being stretched. You can lay on your back on your bed. We call it a 90-90 stretch because you start with your knee bent and you straighten your knee up to be able to get that stretch through your hamstring muscles. Now, this person's pretty flexible. I'm not that flexible. So my leg kind of kicks off at about 70 degrees here. As long as you're getting a stretch, that's what's appropriate. The other one that actually I find is pretty neglected in a lot of athletes, runners particularly, is the low back. So getting into like a child's pose position, if you can do this, you don't have to crouch all the way down like this. You can also sit on a chair and lean forward, reach forward. If you go straight forward, like the top picture here, you'll get it through the central low back, and then leaning off to the side either way, you'll get it through the opposite side from where you're leaning. And that's a really good stretch for your low back, particularly after your workouts and runs. Soft tissue massage. So beating up the muscles in a slightly different way. A massage is a good thing. Foam rollers are really nice for this. They're pretty dang inexpensive. You can jump on Amazon. I think they're like 20 bucks. Usually we get, there's different densities. I tell people, get the most dense foam roller you can. It'll last longer, and really soft ones don't do as much of a job. But if you don't want to get a foam roller, you can use a rolling pin. A lot of people have rolling pins in their home. And you can use it to roll out your IT bands, which is a long fibrous tissue on the side of your thigh that can get pretty tight. Also your calves, like this lady up top here, your hamstrings, here we go, and then your quads. Now, I also talk to people about, yes, you want to roll out those tissues, the muscles, as well as the tendons, but look at the shoulders. This can put your arms in pretty heavy duty conditions where you're actually supporting quite a bit of your weight. So think about that too. You don't want to beat up, your shoulders, your upper arms, stuff like that at the expense. You don't want to beat while you're working on other muscles. So think about what position you're putting yourself in and if you can maintain that. Another one, plantar fasciitis. So stretching your calf muscles, your gastroc soleus helps out a lot with this. It's a good preventative thing. But using a tennis ball to massage the bottom of your foot is really good. You can do this either standing or sitting. And this is actually probably one of the massages that feels the best. But doing this and then kind of just putting some weight on the bottom of your foot and just rolling it around. It's a nice massage into those tendons. Another thing that's kind of a newer thing is personal use percussion machines or massage guns. This again lets you kind of get into the muscle and tendons in a slightly different way. They're all over the place. You can spend $50, you can spend $500, but they're kind of a nice thing. It's like having a masseuse at home, which can be nice. It's extra. And also the idea is icing is really good. After a workout, if you have any knee problems, throw some ice on it for about 10 minutes. That can be really beneficial. Now, cadence or steps per minute. This is actually something that has been really, there's a lot of research on it. There's a little 4 up by the cadence there. I've got some references I've included at the end here that you guys can look at if you really want to. But it turns out that higher cadence or steps per minute decreases your incidence of running related injuries, and primarily looking at things like shin splints, there we go, stress fractures, and it also reduces the impact on your joint. When I started really training seriously for half marathons about 10 years ago, I was getting a lot of shin splint pain and knee pain. And I was looking at, God, I wonder what I can do. And one of my people I talked to said, hey, how many steps per minute do you do? I have no idea. And I checked it out. I was running like 140 to 150 steps per minute. Well, as it turns out, the research talks about doing 160 to 200 steps per minute. And they say that 180 is the research sweet spot. So I actually started training with a metronome, which was super boring, but it actually got my cadence up. And I run now at 180 to 190 steps per minute. And when I started doing this and brought my cadence up, what it does is it turns you from a rear or heel striker, so your heel hits the ground, into a midfoot striker. And it takes a lot of stress off some of your muscles and joints. And when I did this, my pain virtually went away, which was crazy. These days, apps on your phones are much better than running with a metronome, unless you're into that. So you can jump online and find an app for running for music, and you can actually set the steps per minute with the music, and it actually gives you music that is the speed that you want. They also say that your cadence varies depending on your height and your leg length. I'm 6'3" and I run at, like I said, about 185 steps per minute. So if I can do it, you can too. Fueling, nutrition. Now, Blake touched on this a little bit. The idea of putting the fuel into your body, not only before, during, and after your activity is super important. Carbohydrates are quick energy stores. The idea of putting 5 to 6 grams per kilogram of body weight into your body during your exercise, because anything over 60 minutes, like you said, your body kind of gets tired and starts to shut down. So you got to give it energy to do what you want to do. And then all protein, you're beating up your muscles pretty good with runs and then cross training. The idea is endurance athletes. That's what you are. You're going to run a marathon. Endurance athletes need 1.4 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. That's for your day. The carbohydrates, it's about during the exercise, but the protein's about the day. Blake also touched on electrolytes, vitamins, and minerals. Making sure that you're getting these into your body. It's really important to decrease the potential for your muscles cramping, and it also it slows your overall fatigue rate. Now, the thing that you'll get these in a lot of exercise drinks, but also pay attention to what else is in those in terms of sugar and caffeine. If you get something with a lot of sugar, probably Gatorade is one of the best known ones. It has quite a bit of sugar. You'll actually get a peak of kind of energy, and then it follows by a dip, and that can really beat you up in activities over an hour. And obviously a marathon takes more than an hour. And then drinking lots of water. Make sure you're drinking water not just during the exercise, but also after, to replenish those stores. Now, kind of a big deal. Don't try to do on issues a lot. I'm actually part of the Big Sur Marathon medic race team, and people we get problems, mostly blisters, and people say, "Well, I put on these new shoes." It's like, no, don't put on new shoes for race day. Really use your shoes that you've used in training. Run in them, break them in multiple times, and also same thing with the clothes. Don't wear some new shorts and a shirt on race day. You don't know how your body's gonna react to it. Tried and true. Use something that you've used on training days. And then also don't try a new nutrition strategy. The idea of eating a whole bunch of strawberries in the course is great, but there's, you don't know how your body's going to react to that if you don't try it. And there are lots of porta potties along the race routes, but if you don't have to use them, that would be great. Yeah, don't go too crazy on that. And then, like Blake touched on, the race course is actually pretty dang hilly. Get an idea of what it is. So Google it. And if you get a chance, you go online and there's videos of the race course, which is pretty cool. And finally, like I mentioned, I'm a part of the medical team at the Big Sur International Marathon. We're all over the course. We wear red jackets. We're on bikes, and we're at the water and aid stations. The most common issues we see are blisters, muscle cramping, friction, chafing, and dehydration. Really, if you're getting a hot spot, just tell us. We got moleskin. We can help you out. If you're getting muscle cramping, drink water. We have salt pills. Stretch. Stop and stretch. You want to make it to the end. Same thing, friction and chafing. Use your anti-chafing cream. Try it out before your race day. And then dehydration. Make sure you're drinking water. If anything, flag us down. We're there. We're happy to help you. Really, please grab us. That's what we're there for. Here's some references. These will be included afterwards. And then good luck. Have fun. It's a great place to run and enjoy it. Like Blake said, make sure you look to the left. That's where the ocean is. Thanks, guys.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Andrew. Again, really helpful information, and we have more questions. Some of the questions were answered in the chat by Blake kind of during your presentation. So if it was a quick answer, make sure you look back at the chat because you may have an answer waiting right there. But we've got a few lined up. So again, just thank you to the presenters so far that you've really done an amazing job with these presentations. So I've got a couple, well, I'm going to probably alternate here. We've got a couple questions for Blake first, Lots of questions about hills, actually. So I think you're going to have to talk a lot about hills right now. Let me see if I can kind of combine these even. We've got what days do you recommend training for hills during intervals, long runs, pace days, or all of the above? And maybe you can answer this at the same time. Should we be running hilly courses for our long run or just do hill work midweek? I guess that is the same question essentially.
More hills the better. It's a tough course. So I definitely would recommend doing hill workouts on an interval day, which would, for me, would usually fall on like a Tuesday, Wednesday. If for some reason, like you have a Tuesday or Wednesday off and you want to like switch those days and put in like your marathon workout on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and then do an interval day on a weekend, that's works too. But I would get something in your long run, like kind of factor in like some hills in your long run. But then maybe if there was a day that, I wrote in like a couple mile repeats, like you could do some downhill ones. But I just know I made sure that to throw in a lot of hills for my runs. Don't recommend going out to the Big Sur course just for safety reasons, but there's a lot around here where you could train, but just definitely that downhill running is going to beat you up.
Okay, and also for Blake, I'm not sure if you saw this in the chat, there was a question as to whether Vaporfly or Alphafly was better for this race.
I know. You know what? I think the Alphafly, I should pay attention, but I think that's the newer version. So I think they're fine. Like maybe Vaporfly is the older one. I think they're going to give you some cushion, which is good. I think people have reported that if they wear those shoes, they're obviously running a little bit faster and they're not like as beat up as they would be in a not normal training shoe. So either one, but definitely have to say what Andrew said, like just don't risk like something like you want to make sure you've done 3 or 4 like marathon pace runs in whatever shoes you're planning to run for the actual race day, just so you can avoid the blisters. And you just never know, like when you get to like 10, 12 miles in a pair of shoes, like what's going to happen and your feet are going to swell. So, thinking about the socks and that, and then hopefully no rain, but you just never know. So, but yeah, maybe that whatever's newer, like I think I always tell people that shoes have a lifespan and you want to get a newer model because if they have air, they're going to have some air that has seeped out a little bit if they're not like the spring type shoe, but just something that's fairly recent will help.
Okay, great. And I think you already added to the chat the link for the Jack Daniels running calculator, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's free. It seemed pretty easy. And then what we kind of didn't actually, it's good to, if I can take a minute, just if it's better to put in your training, like where your current fitness level is. So if you have a mile PR, a 5K PR, a 10K PR, like, even a recent marathon, like put that in versus like what your goal is, because that's not going to work. Like you can't just put in a race goal and then expect to train at that level. I wish that worked that way, but it doesn't. So you got to train at the level that your body is at. So you definitely want, if you're using that pace calculator, and if you don't have a recent race, just go out to the track and do an all out mile. And then there's your fitness level right there. And then you can plug that in and it's just pretty darn accurate that it's going to tell you what paces to run.
Okay, great. So for Andrew, someone wanted you to clarify or to repeat basically what you said not to do to avoid stretching the sciatic nerves since they don't like to be stretched when you're doing the seated hamstring stretch. So if you could describe that again, please.
Yeah. So when you're doing the seated hamstring stretch, the idea is you want the stretch through the hamstring muscle, and that's in the back of your thigh. Now, if you're getting a stretch through your calf or bottom of your heel or something like that, that's more the sciatic nerve. The first way is to point your toes down. That puts tension off the nerve. The other way you can do it is to just bend your knee slightly. That also will kind of bias the hamstring muscle for the stretch. Again, if you're getting that stretch, that's what you want through the back of the thigh. If you're getting it through your calf or your heel, try the one where you're laying down. That usually eliminates it as well.
Thank you. And just to reiterate, in case the answers weren't seen, there was a question was to whether the foam roller should be used before or after. We've decided after to go along with your static stretching. And also that a balance board would be helpful for this kind of training. Would you agree with those, Andrew?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you don't want to beat up the muscles too much before, so using the foam roller after is definitely appropriate. I actually don't use it right after. I work out. I usually wait a couple of hours because the muscles are pretty sore. So getting on that usually in the evenings is when I do it. And since I've got a 3-year-old, she likes to climb on all over me while I'm foam rolling, which is extra fun. And the same thing with the balance board. Balance boards are really great for ankle stability. Make sure you've got some space, or practice it the first couple of times in a door frame. Something you can hang on to really give yourself some stability. If you don't have a balance board, if you don't want to get one, put a pillow on the ground. You can actually do some really good stuff just by standing on a pillow, both legs, feet together, single leg. Doing little squats on a pillow is really good for ankle stability as well.
Okay, and while you're on there, Andrew, do you have the name for the Steps Per Music app that you had mentioned?
Yeah. I gotta find it. Yeah. Let me look on my phone here. I'll find it and I'll put it in the chat as soon as I find it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's see. So we definitely have more questions coming in. Let me. Let's see. I'm not sure who this one would be best addressed for. What are the important things to wear or bring if it's rainy, since you don't want to overheat, but you also don't want to be cold and wet for this run? Any takers?
Krista, let me take that one. So just from the start logistics. So when you pick up your bib, you'll be given a small bag, a gear bag that you can drop off at the start, and then that will be bus to the finish. So a couple of things to remember about that bag is that it is small. And please don't put anything valuable in that bag. They do get lost, tags fall off of them. So, but a jacket, sweatshirt, pair of pants, you can throw it in there. But if you could, before the race, buying a cheap rain poncho or even a garbage bag, just to keep the rain off or the dew off if it's wet, is good. And a lot of folks actually go to Goodwill and just buy some warm clothes that they discard, right before the race. Just throw it on the side of the road. We have a crew that actually goes behind everybody and picks up all of the abandoned gear, and we donate that all again to Goodwill or to various shelters. So don't feel guilty about it. And then there's a whole crew. I think there's probably 300 or 400 members of our green team that goes through and makes sure that 26 miles of road is cleaner after we leave than before we got there. So don't worry about dropping a pair of gloves or anything on the side of the road. We'll pick it up for you.
John, can you also answer whether headphones are allowed? I'm not sure if you got to that one in the chat.
They're discouraged, I will say that. So it's just a safety issue. So the Highway 1 technically doesn't close. There are caravans of north or southbound traffic that go through because it's a state road. And there's, 5,000 other runners and, bikers and things, support staff around. So if you really, really want to wear headphones, no one's going to disqualify you, but we ask that you not do that just for safety's sake.
Okay. Okay, I've got a question about a calf injury. So perhaps to either of you, maybe more in line with Andrew, the information that you were giving, is there a good rule of thumb about when to resume after a calf injury, for instance, so that is not re-injured with this race?
Yeah, so it really, without knowing the nature of the calf injury, if it's just a muscle strain, being able to getting some faster paced walks It's really good to see how your body responds. Make sure you're stretching it appropriately. If it's something bigger like an Achilles strain, those take a little bit longer to heal from. I think it's big thing is really tissue healing. It really does take about 6 to 8 weeks. But being able to get back into activities, get into the water if you can. If you have access to a pool, do water jogging. It's going to work your muscles out and your joints without the impact and the strain. But also you can, do some faster paced walks or even slower paced jogs just to see how your calf responds to it. Make sure you're icing it afterwards, knock down the inflammation, and massage it, roll it out, and stretch it afterwards. And make sure you're getting that good warm up in. Just little mini jumps, heel raises, stuff like that are really good to prime the muscle for what you're needing it for.
Thank you. And I'd also like to add to that, you still have a lot of time for, your training before the race day. So if you do have some sort of an injury or recurrence of something that you're worried might get aggravated, don't be afraid to reach out to your doctor or to a physical therapist, because you can work with one of these specialists who might be able to, really help you tailor your training specifically for the race that you have. It's not like, if you go to physical therapy, you can't run this marathon. So we can help you get back to, get back on track with your goals for this race in particular. And let's see. There was one more question that I think I was going to, let me find it again. I believe about the electrolytes. Did you have any specific recommendations, Blake? You may have answered this in the chat, so sorry if it's redundant, but any specific recommendations for in-race electrolytes or gels?
I generally used a goo, opted for the caffeine ones that had them in there. And I think I wrote down in the chat too that if you want, like Andrew mentioned, like a lot of the ones really will spike your blood sugar, which you don't want to do. So there is like a product out there I have no affiliation with, but it's just called Gen UCAN. And that is popular because it's the way it's developed. It just is supposed to keep your glucose levels very steady. So that might be something to purchase and buy. I imagine most of the running stores around here would have them, or you could probably buy them online somewhere. But Gen, GEN, and then it's UCAN, CAN. So.
Great, and I think I'm going to throw out one last question here. There is another question about hills, basically, is what it comes down to. But the question now pertains more to treadmill training. So for someone, I think they said living in the Midwest somewhere, what is the percentage that they should be fluctuating between? Should they keep it at a certain minimum or jump from 0 to 4, 6, 8% is the question. Mm-hmm.
I generally did a lot of treadmill training because I was training for heat. And so I wanted to sweat a lot, and I did. But I would keep mine on a 1% grade usually. Supposedly there's been research that if you put it on a 1% grade, it's a little bit more equivalent to regular outdoor running because you're getting the assist of the belt going by. Let's see, what was her question? A certain minimum percentage. Yeah. So I would say 1, but for the grades, I mean, you could use that as a workout and just really go up and down, but treadmills would be a great way just to really simulate like just some long, like grinds up a hill, where you're having to just constantly use the same muscle groups the whole time. So I would maybe go up to like, not initially like 8%, but kind of build your way up, and then, or use it as a kind of an up and down, like as Andrew was talking about. But, for maybe like a mile or 2, and then just go back to flat and then go back up again. And you could have a really nice way to simulate the course.
Okay. And then just to tack one more onto that topic, would you recommend hilly trails versus pavement, and is one preferred?
I think you need to do some running on the roads just to get your body used to the pounding. But if you're doing a marathon pace training run on a Saturday, you're going to get that in. So then I would recommend just trying to find like some flat trails just to save your body a little bit. So for my whole career, like, I mean, I opted generally on trails as much as I could, because, you know, I was still getting in some road workout, but that marathon pace run should be kind of like a specific like road workout.
Okay, great. With that, I think we need to, yeah.
Krista,
Oh, David?
There were a couple of race day logistic questions that I wasn't sure if they were answered.
Oh, go for it. I may have missed them.
I was wondering if John might want to address.
Yeah, sure. So there was a question about, I think, about the start line in the fires. And so yeah, I think some of you saw the Rocky Creek fire. That actually was around the 14-mile mark. So the Rocky Creek Bridge, which is the bridge behind me, is the Bixby Bridge, which is the halfway point. Rocky Creek's about another mile north. As the road's open, so the race will, you know, right now, no effect to the race course. In years past, the bridge south of the start had been washed out, so we had to change the bus routes a little bit. And so there was about a mile, we dropped you off and you had to hike a mile to the start line. That's not the case this year. The bus will drop you off right at the start line. So no extra mileage for any of you who have maybe raced it in, I think it was 2017, 2018. So we're back to the normal start this year. And any other questions I'm happy to answer with regard to logistics. Camelbacks and hydration vests are perfectly legal. They're perfectly fine. You can, and I think we talked about Gatorade Endurance and GU are at some of the aid stations, or Gatorade's at all of the aid stations and GU's at most of them.
Okay, great. I think that was, yeah, thank you, David, for pointing that out, because that's a big one. Obviously, everyone, or a lot of people saw pictures of the Bixby Bridge, basically, with the fire right behind it. So the kind of a pertinent one this year. All right. I think you've answered pretty much the questions here. Let's see. We've had such wonderful topics here. Thank you so much to our presenters and everyone attending this presentation. Thank you for making this interactive. It was really great. I just want to say that if you know a physical therapist, you know that we are passionate about our trade and we truly care about helping others perform their best, whether that be training for a marathon or just simply getting back to day-to-day activities after an injury. So, you know, this is a running specific presentation here, but do keep an eye out for the San Jose District's expert panel series, because we're going to be talking about various topics that might also interest you. And, you know, don't be afraid to reach out to a physical therapist or talk to your doctor if you have something that you'd like to get worked on that's, you know, hindering any part of your day-to-day or training plans, basically. So we can put in the chat at the end here for everybody one last time the pages for our San Jose District CPTA social media. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram to get this information for these future expert panels. And also, we are hoping to post the recording of today's session via social media as well. I think we've probably got more questions that are going to be rolling in. Is anybody, is there an email that we could send some to if there are questions after this? Let's see. John, do you have is there a general email that you, or page that you can put down if people have more questions about the race?
Yeah, so I mean, so most of the Big Sur Marathon website is, you know, the FAQs are pretty robust and should answer most, if not all, of your questions. Please don't hesitate to reach out and I will find out the answer.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone again for joining today. And thank you to Blake Russell and Andrew Mason for providing us with all of that information. Okay, well, good luck with everyone's training and have a good one. Good luck on your race day.